Hello. This week, as I continue to work through, my backlog of projects, I'm gradually getting towards the bottom of the box now, and I've come across some more potential hardcover that really ought to be sorted. Um, so this is just another element, to look at if you're looking for hardcover and walls. If you don't want to make it yourself, if you don't want to buy pre-bought, pre-painted. Another option is, you can either print it yourself if you're lucky enough to have a printer, or you can find these on sale online, where people produce stock walls. So basically, all I'm going to do is a little quick video of what I'm going to do with these, and just show you how I'm going to use them really. And basically, these I believe I got from Any Scale Models, probably via eBay. I can't remember these because these have been kicking around for ages. I've used them before, but this is the last of it. So what I'm going to do is just basically put them together, put some bases on them, and just show you what I do to make them look right for the job. What I'm going to use, you'll have seen me keep before, is leftover bits of sprue. I think some of these come from the landing craft that I built, but they're just ideal for the job, so why buy extra wood if you don't need to? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these to shape, so I've got one for each piece, and then I'll bring you back and I'll show you what I've done with them, and then we'll start putting them together. Right, so I've cut out all the bases for these out of these, what's left over from my sprues. And what I've done, because I've got plenty of these, I thought it'd be useful to have some corner pieces. So what I've actually done is sawed two of them in half, and I've done it at an angle so I can join them together, like 45 degrees. It's gone through reasonably okay, not perfect, but I can cover any of the bits that don't look right and then paint over it. But then what I've also done, because I'd actually got them, is I cut these extra lengths again at 45 degrees so I could match them up to make a corner. Now, one thing I would say, if I'd got a bit of scrap that had been that size, then I probably would have cut this out as an L-shaped piece just to give it a bit more strength. But at the moment, I'm focusing on using up, scraps and spares. I want to keep this a cheap little job. So I'm going to be quite happy to wood glue those together. I'll let them dry. So the next stage is I'm just going to put all of these onto their bases, and I'm going to use my glue gun for that. So what I'll do is I'll get all that done, and then I'll bring you back when they're done. We can take a look at them. Right, so I've based them all up now, and because I hadn't got a wall for this other end, what I've done is I've damaged some bits that I cut out when I made the corners, and tried to make that look like it had been reversed into or knocked over in some way. Obviously, when I come to add any dressing or anything, I can, smarten that up even more. But what I have done is where I've done any cutting, particularly on the corners, I've just touched it back up with some undercoat, just so it's got a primed base coat before we start. So it's just a matter of waiting for these all to dry now, because I've touched them all up with a primer. But as you can see, I've got two lengths with gates. Obviously, because I'm basing them on thin bases, I'm leaving them shut, but they're clearly there as access, and they'll be more clear when they're painted up. So that's going to be the gated entry. This is another gated entry, but it's been destroyed, so I could either just bring it on or use it from the get-go. And then 4 corners, so I can make something meaningful out of it. Obviously, as regards these ones, I have only got those 3, and then 3 pillars. So there's not that much I can do with them. But I've put them on bases anyway, because what I could possibly do is, if I'm ever making any bushes of about that size, I could actually put these in and then partially cover them with bushes, and, you know, make it look like the entire edge has probably got, you know, the stone wall going underneath it, but you can't see it in some places, it's fell down. So, you know, I wasn't going to waste them. It seems a shame. So I've based them up anyway, and even with these, because they don't necessarily sit that straight, I've given them a little bit of off-cut wood on the bottom of them just to make them more stable. But I've tried to keep it as thin as possible, you know. It's just enough to make it stand up, really. So it's not, you know, getting in the way of anything. Right, so as I say, I'll let them dry, and then we'll press on to the next stage. Right, so what I'm going to do next on the walls is, you know, you can see the different bricks pattern. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically paint some of these in a range of colours that are not too dissimilar from each other, but different variants of colour. And then I should give it an overwash to blend it all together, just to give it a bit more feature. So let's just start with, I'm going to start with Dusty Skull. It's a bit of a shake, I think. There we go. And I'm just going to pick bricks out at random, really. So if I just to make it easier, go through all of this, each wall with one colour, then obviously it stops me having to change around all the time to different colours. Right, so let me just plug on with that, and then I'll bring you back when I've added a few more colours, and you'll see the effect then that I'm looking for. Right, back in a minute. Right, so I've spent a bit of time on these now, and I don't know whether you can see that clearly because of light bouncing through the room, but I've picked it out in a variety of colours. I've used some Barrendoon, hemp rope. What were some of the others that I used? Oh, Banshee Brown. So a few, you know, on the similar spectrum, if you like, colours. And then on the top, I've gone for some Tomb King Tan. And I've done that to all of the pieces now. I've stayed on the bricks and everything. Some of the coverage is not great, but it doesn't matter because we're now going to give it a dry overbrush to tie those colours together. so they'll only show through, you know, very much lighter than they are now. And I think what I'm going to go with, I've been umming and ahhing about this, but I think because I want them to be a lighter wall, I'm going to go with this Brain Matter Beige. But I'm going to put it on more as a dry brush. A heavy dry brush, but a dry brush. So let me just squirt a bit of this out onto my paper towel. Give it a shake first. Just get my brush coated, and then brush most of it off, and then basically so it's not a traditional dry brush, it's just I'm going over it, and it's a light coat of paint, but I am not just flicking it by, I'm rubbing it on. You could do this with a sponge really. I'll just complete the side so you can see it when it's done. Right. So as you can see, it's given it a fairly good cover, but you can still see the others coming through. And I'm going to let that dry before I do anything else to it, because we will give it eventually a final dry brush, a proper dry brush. But at the minute, this is about getting a decent coverage over all those coloured bricks, but still showing through. Right, what I'll do is I'll get the rest of these done, and then when they're dry, I'll bring you back and we'll move on to the next stage. Right, so they've all been over painted now. As you can see, the colours are muted, but they're still showing through. I wanted it fairly plain. And I think what I'm going to try and do to bring this a little bit more to life is put a wash on it. I think what I'll do is I'll do the wash first, and then what I'm going to do is paint the bases. Right, I've given them all a coat of my strong wash. As you can see, it's not dried yet. I've just gone over it all, but I just wanted to bring you back and let you see what it looks like at this stage. And I've literally just brushed it on like that. You know, I've not done anything careful. I've just gone over it, all sides. And I think it'll end up drying a lot more subtle than it looks at the minute. Right, I'm going to let those dry, and what I will do, I mean, I've only got these 3 pieces here, is I'll probably bring those up to the same state. Again, I shall pick out individual bricks with some colours. Might not be the same ones as these, but I'll pick out individual bricks with different colours and then give it a wash. And then I'll come back when we're ready for the next bit. Right, so I've brought these other 3 walls up to the same place, given them a wash. These are, they look like bad cast to me because it looks like there's bubbles in it. But I'm not too bothered because I'm going to add a bit of greenery to those walls when I come to them. So I'll just put them to one side, but they're ready at least for the next stage. These ones, since I did the wash, I've done a bit of a dry brush with a couple of different beiges, and then finished off with a dry brush of ancient stone. And I'm pretty happy with how they're looking now. So I've just got to paint these gates up. Obviously I've got the broken gate, and then I've got 2 ordinary gates. So I've mixed myself a bit of a green up that I'm happy with. So all I'm going to do now is just paint these gates up. Might need more than one coat, but we'll see. You can see how it's looking. So I'm going to get these all painted up, and if I feel it needs another coat, then I will give it one. But I don't want it to look pristine anyway. I want it to look like it's been up for a while. Right, I'll carry on and get those done, and then we'll come back for the next thing. Right, so I've painted the gates now, and I've just picked out the hinges and the latches as well. And what I've decided to go for is, for the base, I don't want it to be just stone, because that might have a limit, or grass, because that might have a limit. So what I'm going to go with is some very fine ready mix that does have some greenery in it. So it could work as grit or stone, and then it's just got bits of weed in it. So I figure that's going to help me match it up to more different areas of the map. So that's what I'm going to go with. So all I'm going to do, I've squeezed out a little bit of PVA. Doing my best to make sure I don't catch the wall, but we can brush it off if I do catch a little bit of it before it has time to fully dry. I'm just going to do the one side at once. Make sure that we get the front edge as well. Right. A bit mess there. And that's it, look. So I think that's going to sit with most things then. It won't be too in your face if I've got it up against a stone base. But it'll also work if it's against a soil or a grassy base. So I think that's going to give it some versatility, really. Right, I'm going to crack on, get the rest of these done. These few small walls that I've done, I think I am going to go because I want to stick some greenery on these. So I'm going to go with more of a grass type finish on those. So I'll bring you back before I start them anyway. Right, so these ones have got their coats, just a question of letting it dry now. And then we can seal it. So I'm going to turn to these ones, and as I said, I've noticed more on the casting here that I don't even know whether these are ones that I've cast when I was first doing it, or whether it's something I've bought. But I noticed it's got. I can't believe that they're meant to be bullet holes, although you could argue that they'd pass for that. They look more like bubbles in the mould to me. But I just don't remember. They've been kicking around for so long. But anyway, regardless of them being there, I was going to be sticking greenery to this one because there's only 3. So I think this, I didn't want to waste them, but I think it would work really well if I was to add it with bushes. Perhaps have 2 here and 1 in another place. So it looks like there was a wall, but there's a hedge being grown along it and that kind of thing, really. Just so it can become more of a set. So I've been thinking about this, and I think the easiest way for me to do it is I'm going to just paint the glue on it, because then I can take my time sticking little bits of this greenery in and around the bricks where I want it. So I'll just do a small section so you can see what I'm thinking. If I just paint this on, right. And what I'm thinking is I want some little bits and then I'll add some bigger bits afterwards. And I'm going to actually just push them in between the bricks and squeeze it into place. There you go. I mean, I've just put a small amount in there, look. I'm not suggesting I'm going to plug all the holes and things that I've spot the imperfections, but I'm going to put some on some of it and then have some bigger pieces of bush stuck on there as well. And I just think that'll help it, I can tie it in with a variety of things then and just use these last few. And all I'm literally doing, like I say, is just dropping it onto the glue and then just pushing it home where I want it. Right, I'm going to carry on and get these done, and then I'll bring you back, and once they're dry we can have a look at just sealing them, and then that'll be that project finished. Right, so as you can see, they're all based up now. I've finished off these 3 walls that I'm going to tie in with some hedges. They're all drying nicely. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to seal this now to make sure it doesn't come off. So I'm going to use some watered down PVA and just put it on with a dropper. So put my little tray over the top. And I've just watered down a bit of PVA. That's the first one done. Right, I'll just carry on and get the rest of these done. I'll let them dry, and then once they're dry, we'll bring them back, and I'll, set them up in a bit of a, around a building or something, so we can take a look at them, and we'll wind this one up. Right, back in a minute. Right, so here they all are, totally dry now. Well, almost totally dry. There's a few little damp bits here and there, but very nearly there. I'm pretty pleased with them. They go well with a variety of my buildings, because I've tried to use a similar palette. And it's just always handy to have a, variety that you can bring to the table, whatever way you get them really, whether you buy them pre-painted, resin cast like this, or make your own. It's an invaluable piece to bring the table to life. And, it's like these, even though, you might not have many of them, you can still make a reasonable feature out of these. And, you could make a small garden to the back of one of the houses with these. So there might only be a few, but you can still use them. And if you look at other things you've got, you can try and blend it to go with it. If you're trying to do it, without spending too much money, you make use of everything you've got. Right, what I'll do is I'll take a series of photographs, looking a bit closer at them, and then I'll set up a little mini scene so you can see them, in part, and see what they look like. Right, I'll put you onto the photos. So they're all totally dry now, and I'm pretty pleased with how they've turned out in the end. it's nice to be getting down to the bottom of all these things that I've left to one side. And these literally were banging around in the bottom of the box and things to get done. And it'd be nice to have a new variety of walls to use on a game table. And these particularly fit really nicely with my Normandy theme, particularly these tall walls. But it just shows you, even with a few, you know, like these three, you can still make a bit of a scene from them. So, you know, it's a shame to waste it, really. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you've found something useful in it. And, you know, it might be worth, you know, if you don't want to go down the pre-painted route, then these cast walls, you know, resin cast walls, might be your cup of tea. Anyway, if you have enjoyed it, please consider giving me a thumbs up or even subscribing and clicking the bell for when the next video drops. And I'll see you again soon. Bye.